Well, in the spirit of the huge rivalry football game that happened this past weekend between Folsom and Oak Ridge High School, we thought, why not do a city-to-city comparison between Folsom and El Dorado Hills? We're gonna cover some of the pros and cons, where they're located at, some of the things to do, some of the similarities, some of the differences, and if you're thinking about moving to either one of these cities, which city would be better for you?
Let's check it out.
What's up, everyone? We're Lance and Lauren with the Living in Sacramento team, and on today's video, we're gonna be comparing Folsom, California versus El Dorado Hills. Now, they are both close to each other in proximity, but both can feel a little bit different when you actually get into each of these cities and you start, getting to know some of the ins and outs, the schools, and some of those things. So we're gonna talk about each one of these cities. We're gonna go back and forth. We're gonna compare locations, school, housing, and what some of the main differences are. And stick around until the very end because we're gonna cover which city we like over the other. All right, so jumping right into it, El Dorado Hills is gonna be located just about 5 or 10 minutes east of Folsom as you're going up Highway 50 towards, South Lake Tahoe and Cameron Park and Placerville and all that stuff as you start entering into the Sierra Nevada foothills. Now, the population here is gonna be right around 47,000 people, and it's definitely gonna have a smaller, kind of smaller community, more intimate, I guess kind of quieter vibe than you're gonna experience in Folsom when Lauren talks about that, but definitely you still have a lot of amenities here. You're still gonna have a lot of different shops and grocery stores and all of your kind of typicals, Targets and things like that, but it's definitely gonna have a smaller town community vibe. It's gonna have a little bit more intimacy, and it's gonna have a little bit more integration in with nature. So you're gonna be kind of just at the start of the foothills. So you're gonna have a lot of these homes, a lot of these neighborhoods that are gonna be kind of interconnected with a lot of this like natural beauty stuff around Folsom Lake and some of that mature tree growth that you're gonna experience. Now, one of the main reasons why a lot of people choose to move to El Dorado Hills, primarily it's gonna be some of the natural beauty of the city, plus you're gonna have a lot of the same outdoor recreation, kind of outdoor amenities that we've talked about in Folsom over the last couple of videos as well too. So you're gonna be super close to Folsom Lake. There's actually gonna be an entrance to the Folsom Lake from the El Dorado Hills side. You're gonna have hiking, biking, trails. It's gonna be super active. You're gonna have a lot of that different options. So this is definitely one of those communities where you can get a lot of that while you're living here. Now, with El Dorado Hills not being as big as some of the other cities that we featured, or Folsom or Elk Grove or Roseville, you're not gonna have as much of your entry-level price point homes here that you would experience in, let's say, like Roseville or even places like Elk Grove. So the price point to get into El Dorado Hills is going to be a little bit higher. You're going to have some traditional single family. You're going to have a small section where you can find some townhomes and some condos, but for the most part, you're going to have a much larger home. You're going to have some new construction communities that's going to be in that same south of Highway 50 area, kind of like Folsom Ranch. So there is some new construction going on over there, as well as some other parts as you start kind of going up towards Placerville. But your entry point to El Dorado Hills is going to be a little bit higher in this area, and there's going to be a little bit less of diversity as it relates to the type of housing that you're going to find here.
All right, so moving on to Folsom at a high-level overview. Folsom is a part of Sacramento County and is located east of Sacramento along Highway 50 as you're headed up towards Lake Tahoe. Now, Folsom currently has a population of 83,000 people and is around 30 square miles large. Now, Folsom size-wise isn't as large as El Dorado Hills. However, it's growing like crazy with a ton of new developments in the Folsom Ranch and Russell Ranch area south of Highway 50. Now, one of the reasons many people love living in Folsom is the proximity. So Folsom is super close to Sacramento. You're only about a 30-minute drive out of Sacramento. So if you have to travel down there for work, it only takes about 30 minutes to get into Sacramento. Now, the other pro of Folsom is also how easy it is to get to South Lake Tahoe. So if you want to go up to Tahoe and enjoy a fun weekend, or during the snow season, if you want to go skiing or snowboarding on the south side of Lake Tahoe, it's a super easy commute to get there. You just have to hop on 50 heading towards Lake Tahoe, and you'll be there in about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on traffic. Now, one of the huge pluses to Folsom is also having that freeway access to Highway 50, making it super easy. So also, if you have to commute down to the Bay Area or commute further past Sacramento, the fact that you're super close to 50 makes Folsom a great spot and super easy and convenient for people. Now, Folsom is similar to El Dorado Hills in the fact that you have a ton of different styles of homes here. You've got high-end luxury living, you've got tract style homes, you can find townhomes, you can find apartments here. You can also find new construction homes with all of the new construction construction going in south of Highway 50 at Folsom and Russell Ranch. You can also find gated communities here as well, but we'll talk a little bit more about housing a little bit later on.
So if you're choosing to move to one of these two areas, one of the main questions that we get from a lot of people who are relocating to either Folsom or El Dorado Hills are what are the things to do? So covering the El Dorado Hills side of things first, El Dorado Hills is going to have a lot of the same outdoor recreational activities and amenities that Lauren's going to touch on in Folsom. One of the main ones is going to be Folsom Lake. Folsom Lake is going to have one of its main entry points in El Dorado Hills. It's going to be where the main boat slips are if you like to go out on Folsom Lake to go boating or jet skiing or any kind of water sport or activity. So a lot of people who move up to this part of town or this area of the greater Sacramento metro, they love their water sports, they love to go out on Folsom Lake. And then you're also going to have a ton of like mountain biking, hiking trails that are going to also be out at Folsom Lake. Plus you're going to have a ton of different hiking and biking trails that you can find on different apps like All Trails or any kind of app that you use to discover different kind of hiking and biking trails. You're also going to have a lot of access to that in El Dorado Hills. El Dorado Hills is also home to a private country club, which is going to be called Serrano. That's going to be located in the guard gated community of Serrano, and that's also going to have an 18-hole golf course that's going to be just for its members. They're going to have different things like fitness facilities and all that fun stuff as well too. We can always get you a little bit more information on Serrano as well. And then lastly, you're going to have the town center over on the other side of Highway 50. Now the El Dorado Hills Town Center is going to be kind of that main hub of El Dorado Hills. So you're going to have a lot of shopping there, a lot of really good restaurants. The city does a lot of different type of community events that are going to be at the El Dorado Hills Town Center. So they usually do a fireworks show that's pretty awesome in 4th of July. They also have different holiday events that happen during the winter time. So they have an outdoor ice skating rink. So lots of really cool stuff, a lot of really cool community events that happen over at the El Dorado Hills Town Center.
All right, moving on to things to do in Folsom, California. Now, one of the reasons so many people love living in Folsom is there is so much to do in this area. It's awesome. If you love getting outdoors, if you love being active, then this is definitely a place that you're gonna wanna consider. Now, Folsom, California has Lake Natoma, where you can go out and you can go paddle boarding, you can go kayaking, you can enjoy the water here, especially during those hot summer days. You can spend a whole day out here enjoying this lake. The cool thing about this lake and what we personally love about Lake Natoma is that there are no motorboats allowed on this water. So if you do enjoy going paddleboarding or kayaking, you're not having to deal with the wake from those motorized boats. Now, if you enjoy taking your boat out on the lake, you also have Folsom Lake, which is super close by. Now, even though it's called Folsom Lake, there's actually not an entrance to Folsom Lake in Folsom. You would either have to go into El Dorado Hills to get onto the lake, or you'd have to go into Granite Bay, but it's still super close, super convenient. This lake, when it has enough water, which we've had recently, there's a ton of space, so you're not dealing with fighting for water space. You can go jet skiing, you can pull tubes, you can go water skiing. There's tons of space on this lake for many, many boats. It doesn't really get too compact, which is great. They also have beach areas that have lifeguards on duty during the summer months. On top of Lake Natoma and Folsom Lake, you also have a ton of trails. So there's trails all across the city, but there's also trails located close to the waterways. So if you enjoy getting out biking or running, or you want to take your dog for a walk, there's so many different trails where you can do this without having to be worried about cars or anything like that. Now, Folsom is also a huge cycling community. So if you enjoy going cycling, you can definitely find a group here where you can get involved with that, or you can go out cycling on your own through some of these awesome pathways. Another thing that Folsom also has is they also have an aquatic center here. So during the summer months, if you want to cool off, if you want to get your kids into swimming or recreational swimming, you can also go and accomplish that at the Folsom Aquatic Center. This aquatic center has an Olympic-sized pool with lanes that can go both ways, so it can run the short course or the long course. And they also have a really cool splash area, slide area, and they have a really cool obstacle course. It's an inflatable obstacle course that goes on top of the larger pool during some events throughout the summer, which is a ton of fun. It's a great place to take the kiddos and hang out and cool off during the day. Now, if you're interested in something that's not a water activity, you also have golf here. So Folsom also has its own golf course. It has Empire Ranch, which is an 18-hole course. This is a beautiful course. It's very well maintained. There's also homes that sit around this golf course. So if you want to live in high-end luxury living on a golf course, you can also do that right here in Folsom, California. And we can't talk about Folsom without talking about the shopping here. So one of the awesome things about Folsom, California is there is a ton of shopping here. You've got the Palladio, which is an outdoor kind of mall area, has so many different stores. You've got Victoria's Secret, you've got H&M, you've got Nordstrom Rack, you've got Barnes & Noble, you've got a ton of different boutique style stores. You also have 2 different movie theaters here, so if you want to go check out a movie theater, you can go to the family-oriented movie theater, or you can go to the 21 and up movie theater. Now this 21 and up movie theater it's only 21 up because they have a bar there and it's more oriented towards that date night date scene. Now another thing about Folsom when it comes to things to do is you have the downtown Folsom area, which is this cute historic part of Folsom. You've got restaurants there, you've got some boutique stores, you've got candy shop, you've got a coffee shop there, you've got a really cute bakery with Karen's Bakery. So there's so many different parts across Folsom, depending on what side of Folsom you live on. It's definitely going to be easy and convenient to find a great restaurant and a great place to go hang out and enjoy the awesome weather that we have here.
Now, one of the second biggest topics, or one of the second biggest questions that we get from people who are relocating to the greater Sacramento metro is going to be school districts. Now, the whole reason why we kind of decided to do this video comparing Folsom to El Dorado Hills was there was an awesome rivalry football game that happened this past week between Folsom High School and Oak Ridge High School, which are 2 very top, very highly accredited football programs, but they're also 2 highly accredited schools as well. So we're at Oak Ridge right now. Lauren's gonna be over at Folsom, but it's their only high school that services El Dorado Hills, but this is an amazing campus. They've got great athletic programs. They've got great education programs. Most, if not all of the schools in El Dorado Hills, from elementary all the way up to the high school, they're gonna also be rated highly and above the state average for California. So for elementary schools, you're gonna have William Brooks, you're gonna have Lakeview, and you're also gonna have Jackson Elementary, and all of those elementary schools are gonna rate a 9 out of 10. Now for your middle school, you're gonna have Rolling Hills Middle School, which is gonna be located directly across the street from Oak Ridge High School. That's gonna be an 8 out of 10. Now where I'm located at right now, which is gonna be Oak Ridge High School, is gonna be rated 9 out of 10 for test scores, a 10 out of 10 for college readiness, and a 9 out of 10 for equity. So now the nice thing about the public schools in El Dorado Hills is that they're gonna rate anywhere from an 8 out of 10 all the way up to a 9 out of 10, all the way from elementary to the high school. So no matter where you decide that you're gonna live in El Dorado Hills, if you're deciding to make this or you're deciding to call this home, all of the public schools in El Dorado Hills are gonna be highly rated, which is awesome.
All right, so next up, we're talking about schools. Lance just talked about El Dorado Hills. We'll talk about Folsom a little bit in detail when it comes to their schools here. So Folsom is known for having really, really great schools. They're highly rated. Many of these schools rate an 8 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10 on greatschools.org. So if you're looking for a great place to send your kiddo to, Folsom is definitely gonna have that for you. And they have the whole package here. They don't just have great education, they also have great sports programs at these schools as well, which is something that this community is known for. There are 2 high schools located in Folsom, California. You've got Folsom High School, which is where I'm at right now. Now, this high school rates right now on greatschools.org a 10 out of 10 overall, and it also is known for its sports programs. Now at Folsom High School, they offer just about every single sports program you can possibly think of. But the thing that's different about Folsom High School is Folsom is known for its football team. Now the football team here is a team that excels year after year after year. They usually have an undefeated record, and most years they'll make it to the state championship, which is huge. All right, so moving on to the other high school that's located in Folsom, California, you're gonna have Vista Del Lago. Now Vista Del Lago is the newer high school that was built about 10 years ago. This high school is a gorgeous facility as well. They offer just about every single sports program that you can possibly think of. And right now they also rate a 10 out of 10 overall on greatschools.org. Now, if you're thinking about moving to the newer part of Folsom, the Folsom Ranch side and Russell Ranch side, which is south of Highway 50, currently they do not have their own high school. All of the kiddos from that area will be bused to Vista Del Lago. However, there are plans to build a high school out here that will accommodate all of those brand new houses.
Now, in regards to traffic and commuting for El Dorado Hills, there's gonna be the main freeway that's gonna run through the town of El Dorado Hills, going from west to east, or going up towards from Sacramento up to South Lake Tahoe. So that's gonna be the main freeway. Then everything else is gonna run north and south towards Folsom Lake, and then back down to the newer developments that are gonna be south of 50. So outside of Highway 50, you're gonna have a couple of different main exits that are gonna take you north and south throughout the city. And you may be dealing with some of your typical traffic like stop signs and street lights that are gonna take anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, depending on where you're located. So if you're located all the way out by Folsom Lake in some of the housing or communities that are out by Folsom Lake, it may take you a little bit longer to get to Highway 50 to make it down to Sacramento if you have to commute down there, or if you're deciding to take a day trip up to South Lake Tahoe. So in comparison, you know, obviously Folsom on the map is gonna be a little bit closer than El Dorado Hills to, like, let's say downtown Sacramento. So the commuting time from El Dorado Hills to downtown Sacramento may take you about 10 to 15 minutes longer than if you were in Folsom. So Folsom's gonna be anywhere from, you know, 30, 35 to 40 minutes. El Dorado Hills is probably gonna take you an extra 10 to 15 minutes on top of that. Just kind of plan on if you're living in El Dorado Hills, and depending on where in El Dorado Hills that you're living, it can take anywhere from an extra 10 to maybe 20 minutes as it relates to getting back down to downtown Sacramento. And then throughout the town, you're gonna be dealing with your traditional stop signs and stoplights, which could add anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes depending on how close you are to Highway 50.
All right, so Lance just talked about traffic in El Dorado Hills. Now let's talk about traffic in Folsom. Now, traffic in Folsom really depends on where you need to go and what time you need to get there. Now, depending on what part of Folsom you live at, if you live closer to the Highway 50 side, you're not gonna have to trek all the way across town, which is convenient to get onto Highway 50. However, if you live in Folsom closer to the Granite Bay side of Folsom, you'll have to make your way all the way across town, which can be a little hectic. And to be honest, the first few times that I had to drive through Folsom, I was super confused because the streets don't really run in your normal grid-like fashion. Some streets kind of go loop up around and come back down, and it can be confusing, and it can also take a lot of time to get across the city of Folsom to get to the freeway. Now, with Folsom growing like crazy, there has been a lot more traffic here, so it is something that you'll have to take into consideration. The biggest thing about traffic with Folsom, California is making sure that you're allotting enough time to get to where you need to get to, depending on what time of day you're traveling. So if you're traveling during peak commute hours, make sure you give yourself enough time.
Now, the last topic that we're going to talk about prior to wrapping this up is going to be housing. Now, a lot of people who are watching this channel, they're usually, you know, wanting to move or relocate to some of these areas, you know, Folsom, El Dorado Hills, Elk Grove, Roseville. They tend to be some of the hot areas outside of Sacramento that a lot of people are asking us questions about. But like I briefly mentioned at the beginning of this video, El Dorado Hills, the entry point to get into El Dorado Hills is going to be a little bit higher than maybe some of the other cities or suburbs that we've talked about prior on this channel. So at the time of recording this video, the lowest price home in El Dorado Hills is going to be listed right at $630,000. Now, there are a couple of active adult communities, which we'll talk about on our next video, which is going to be all the active adult communities in the greater Sacramento metro. But there are a couple that are going to be under that $640K price point. But the first single family home available for sale in El Dorado Hills at the time of recording this video is going to be $640,000. And then they can go anywhere north of like 3.5 to 3.6 million. And you can find some pretty awesome, pretty crazy things that are out in El Dorado Hills. So you're going to have your traditional neighborhoods, your traditional single family homes that are going to be kind of around the high school and around some of the elementary and the middle schools. And those are going to be pretty, you know, pretty standard, you know, 5, 6, 7,000 square foot lots. Now, the cool thing about El Dorado Hills is that you can also find some pretty cool lots that are going to be, you know, in or surrounded by nature. So there's going to be a couple of really cool developments that are going to be towards the north side of El Dorado Hills, which are going to be out by Folsom Lake. Those are really awesome communities. It's definitely, you know, a little bit more quieter of a feel or a vibe. You're definitely involved or around nature in that regard. You're gonna have, you know, stuff that's gonna be around the Serrano and the gated communities that are gonna be up there. So we have had a couple of families that we've helped from this channel relocate to El Dorado Hills. There's a guard gated side, which you can find some really custom, pretty cool homes in there. There's also gonna be a non-guard gated side that are gonna have your traditional single family homes that are gonna be on the opposite side away from the country club. You're gonna have some new construction development that's also gonna be south of 50. You've got Blackstone. You've got a couple of those neighborhoods that we've talked about. You can check those out right here. But there's definitely gonna be a lot of really cool things as it relates to housing. Your price point and your entry point may be a little bit higher, so there may not be as much of those homes in the 400, 500, or even in the low 600s. But starting in the low 600s, and you can pretty much find whatever you want there. Now, the other thing that I will say in comparison, so if you're looking between here and then Folsom as it relates to what Lauren's gonna talk about shortly, El Dorado Hills, you tend to get, in my opinion, you tend to get a little bit more bang for your buck. But in my opinion, I think you may spend a little bit more out here, but the quality of house is gonna be a little bit newer feeling, or it's gonna have a little bit more of kind of those X factors, whether it's gonna be, you know, surrounded by a little bit more nature, or maybe you have a little bit bigger of a lot. But El Dorado Hills will have a little bit of everything. They'll have primarily single family homes. Expect that you can find some homes starting in the low to mid 600,000s, and then they can go anywhere north of $3.5 million, $4 million. You can find some pieces of property or some land, whether it's within Serrano or just throughout El Dorado Hills, where you can kind of build your own custom home. So we're gonna jump over to Lauren for Folsom, and then we're gonna wrap this thing up.
moving on to the next topic, housing in Folsom. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a ton of different housing options when it comes to Folsom, California. Now, Folsom, you've got high-end luxury living, you've got gated communities, you've got golf course living if you want to live on a golf course. You've also got brand new construction homes that are on the south of 50 side, and you also have a ton of tract-style homes that have been here for a while. So depending on what you're looking for, you can definitely find it here in Folsom, California. Now, one thing to note is that the topography in Folsom is a little bit different. You've got some rolling hills, so some houses can have a view, which can be super, super nice. Now, one thing also is that overall for the greater Sacramento area, Folsom is gonna have a higher entry point, and that kind of relates back to the schools. Now, when we're talking about housing, Folsom has really held its value over the course of time. We don't see housing prices dip very much. In fact, Folsom has continued to climb recently. So one thing to note is that if you are looking at purchasing a home in Folsom, it might cost you a little bit more than some of the other surrounding areas, but when you think of all the amenities that you get living in Folsom, California, it's definitely worth it. Another thing when it comes to housing is there's also a brand new 55 and up active adult community here. So if you're 55 and up and you want to live in high-end luxury living, you've got that at the Regency by Toll Brothers, which is out on the south of 50 side in Folsom Ranch. It's a gorgeous brand new community. We toured the houses a while back. They're beautiful. They have everything that you can possibly think of. You can find that here in Folsom, California too. So wrapping it all up with the housing here, you've got everything. You've got high-end luxury living, you've got your standard tract style homes, which are all cute and offer a ton of character. You've got brand new construction, you've got townhomes, you've got homes that are close to the different waterways, you've got views. If a view of Lake Natoma is something you want, you can find that here in Folsom too. So Folsom has it all when it comes to housing. It's a great city to live in.
All right, so that's our comparison between El Dorado Hills and Folsom. To wrap it up on our comparison between the two different cities, between El Dorado Hills and Folsom, we talked about schools, we talked about things to do, we talked about housing, but ultimately, what was your favorite city if you had to choose between one or the other?
My favorite, even though I really, really love Folsom, I love that you have everything there, my favorite is definitely El Dorado Hills. And the reason for that is I love how quiet it is up here, and I love the overall mature trees and how beautiful it is up here. And you just kind of have that smaller town kind of community vibe up in El Dorado Hills. So I would personally pick El Dorado Hills. Even though I really love Folsom, I'd rather do the drive to get to the stores and the shops and not necessarily be in the heart of all of that.
Yeah, so my favorite's gonna be Folsom. I've loved Folsom since I was in high school. Regardless of all the positive things there are about El Dorado Hills, you know, the convenience of Folsom being close to everything, it's just grown into such an awesome community over the last 20 years.
So even within the same household, you know, we actually like the different areas for different reasons. But one thing that we can agree on is that both of these areas are awesome. They have a lot to offer. It just kind of depends on what your style is and what you like. But that's one thing that you can do. You can reach out to us. It's something that we can help you with, figuring out which one's going to be the best for you.
Yeah, so that phone number is going to be popping back up. We are the ones that answer every phone call, email, and text message. We absolutely love it when you guys reach out to us. We love going out and showing you guys homes, checking out all these different communities, sharing with you what we love about these communities. But that's what we're going to do on that Zoom call, is we're going to get to know what your guys' goals are, what you're really looking to accomplish, and we can start eliminating some of these areas that may just really not fit you, and also start narrowing down or figuring out some of the areas that are really going to make you and your family happy when you guys make the move to the greater Sacramento metro. So that phone number is up there. You know, give us a call, shoot us a text, or send us that email, and just know that we always get your back when it comes to moving to the greater Sacramento metro.